All right, let's try this again, shall we? All right. Can everybody see my screen? All right, cool. So, all right, we are back for take two. My name is Jason over at Pater DFS. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Will not happen again. But every Tuesday here at Pater, what I'm going to do is I'm going to host a live stream where we're going to cover the models, the directions that they wanted us to go in on the Tuesday main slate. We're also going to recap where ownership was projected to go and then really more about where it landed in certain contests. So we're going to take a look at both small field contests and large field contests today. So first thing is first, right here, this tab that I have open right here, this is our range of outcomes tab and our scoring percentages tab. Over here at Pater DFS, you have two different views. You can take a look at it. In advanced is my preferred one because I'm a little bit of a nerd and I like to know, all the leverage, all the ownership, top scores. I like to have all the information at my disposal. If you click simple, you can see a more simplified view where there's 8+ runs. You have your leverage column and your ownership. So for this example, we're just going to go through, advanced. So the models tonight really were high on the Chicago Cubs. We had them as the highest scoring team on the slate, 20% chance to score 8 runs or more. We had them also with a 12.2% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate. Very much so, pretty decent gap between some of these other ones. On a large slate, this isn't really that big of a gap. So if the Cubs were much more owned, maybe you'd see some different scores here with the leverage. But as you could tell, being the top scoring stack on the slate, they were great leverage really at their ownership. Also on this tab, what you could do is you could sort by, various different ways to view this. So 8+ runs, you'll see from top to bottom who is most likely to, score 8+ runs or more. You have your top score, you have your ownership. So you can see when you sort by ownership, Milwaukee, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and Arizona collectively top 4 of the most owned stacks, with Milwaukee, Baltimore, and Tampa Bay leading the way. Shouldn't be much of a surprise really to anybody, considering Milwaukee is in course tonight, and you have Baltimore on the road with the dome open in Arizona, and Tampa Bay in their minor league ballpark against Kyle Hendricks. So this is not all that surprising. The number one column that I want people to take a look at here is this Lev X column. So when you sort by from high to low, what this is really demonstrating is that the Angels at their current ownership pre-slate were the highest leverage team that you could play on the slate tonight, followed by Seattle, Atlanta, and Chicago. So Chicago rating so high in our model should be a really big indicator for anybody that, uses these tools to build lineups, that Chicago was in a really good spot and we really like them. When I sort by Lev X from smallest to greatest, you'll see Colorado at their ownership 66.85 collectively. Some of the worst, leverage teams on the slate, followed by the Padres, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks. So ultimately, what you first wanted to do was really go and, try to play the Cubs if you can. Also in these sheets, we have individual players we can look at. So I'm going to sort by pitchers here. And when we look at pitchers here, so I know we always have a lot of debate really in our Discord about how we view pitching, what we want to do at, do you eat the chalk pitching? Where do you pivot? Do you eat chalk at both places? So both positions. So this right here is a pretty good illustration of really why you want to, in baseball more often than not, if a chalky pitcher projects good, you should not be afraid to play them. You may not always need to play them just because there could be a bevy of options, but just to, first sort this by salary. I do this every day when I look at these, at the player range of outcomes. I go and sort by salary. And what I want to just take a quick peek at is I look at their median. I don't even look at ceiling yet. I will get to that, in a minute, but I look at median and I want to just see, based upon their salary, who is projected to have a solid floor, especially if you're going to eat some ownership at pitching. You want it to be a little bit more reliable. So one thing I look at outside of salary, I see here, you'll see Chris Sale. And for all you people that, color coded, very easy to follow. Zach Wheeler, Dylan Cease have, their projections. Chris Sale out projected both of them by a considerable amount, and he's cheaper, indicating Chris Sale, if you're paying up, is probably the better option. I know he didn't have a great result tonight, but our models do like him. Framber Valdez, below him, clearly not projected well, for 8,800. Shane Baz, 8,600. Not that great of a projection. You usually want to see them, at least 2x their median. Their median be 2x their salary. Luis Castillo, very strong. Nick Lodolo, not really. Cole Reagan's very strong. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is I go and look at the top finish percentage, and I want to see which pitchers are most likely to be the top performing, top scoring pitcher on the slate. You'll see here, Luis Castillo, Cole Reagan's, they're way ahead of Zach Wheeler, Dylan Cease. Yeah, Freddie Peralta down here, but Luis Castillo is $2,000 less than Zach Wheeler to roster today and projects better, and also is at slightly lower ownership. So that right there would tell you that, yeah, you might want to pay for pitching, but you don't need to pay up that high for pitching today. The other columns I like to look at here, the 20 plus percentage. This is, percentage that this pitcher could score 20 points or more. Chris Sale, obviously leading the way, Castillo, Reagan. So there's a theme here that Sale, Castillo, Reagans are who we really, really liked. So one other thing I like to look at here, and this is, credit to Pablo in Discord. This is something he preaches all the time. This 2x percentage. This right here is going to give you a pretty good idea of value. So I want to be very clear, though, here that there is definitely some nuance to this. For instance, Kyle Freeland in Coors Field, he's $5,000, median of 14. The Brewers are not great against left-handed pitching, but you should know that Kyle Freeland is in Coors. Maybe you don't go there. It's just something to think about. If you want to play Kyle Freeland, you can be my guest. He's already getting rocked tonight, but that's my point. Chris Sale is still showing, pre-slate as a great value at 9,300. Followed by Charlie Morton at 6,700, Cole Reagan's 8,100, then Taillon, Peralta, Castillo. So you're getting an overall theme here that even when you sort by 2x, we have a bevy of options that their median is 2x their salary, but you probably want to stick to more of the Sale, Reagan's, Peralta, Castillo. Landon Roop also projects really well, but this is probably the sweet spot for where you should be looking to really start your pitching core. So that's the first thing I take a look at. I do also like to take a look at the hitters too. My favorite thing for the hitters tab is I like to sort by team here, and then I get a really, really good idea of ownership. You get a look at their medians, their ceilings, and overall you could start to see which teams have multiple players that may project well. Here's the other thing that's really important about this, and this is where I think a lot of people may misconstrue what is actually a chalk stack. So if a chalk stack is showing as pretty highly owned, there's a chance it could be one player that is getting most of the ownership, with some other people having sporadic ownership. It could be some teams where you have multiple players on the team that are, more than 10% owned, like Baltimore, for instance. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys projected for north of 10% ownership today as individual plays. So I just wanted to make that clear, that just because you see ownership on a team in the scoring percentages tab, it may not be that their entire team is that owned. It could just be a few different players. So to make that clear. And then the last thing I like to look at is the optimals. So with our optimals, set it always to 500 for me. Prepare the data export. And this is going to give you a really good idea of where the cash game builds are going to be, your super small field. So Chris Sale, Castillo, probably going to be the chalk combo. If it's not that, it's definitely Sale. It was going to be Sale and Reagan's. Dylan Moore showing, Garrett Hampson, Pavin Smith, Taylor Walls. So these are the cheap guys that you're probably going to be there and see. And over here, you can see basically how to build your cash games. And then also maybe where you make a pivot, right? So people starting with Sale and Castillo or Sale Reagans, they're probably going to go to Dylan Moore. They're going to go to Garrett Hampson, Pavin Smith, Taylor Walls, and then so on and so forth. So that's how you can use those models to figure out really where you need to be if you're playing cash games, if you're looking at pitchers. If you're looking at individual hitters, that's also, that's a good way to do it too. But really, we care more about stacks. So let's go take a look over at the contest sims. So in the contest sims, very important here. We want to really map out the parameters of the contest that we're going to play. So James may need to give me a little bit of a refresher on this, but for small field, I believe it's anything from like 10 entries to I think a few hundred, maybe 500, maybe a little bit more. Medium, I believe, is anything, maybe north of 1,000 to like 2,000, and large is a couple thousand plus. So let's take a look at things from a small field perspective. If you're playing the 121, you're playing the 250, you're playing even the 88. We can even say that. Max 700 people. So the sharpness in the field is going to be determined exactly by how much the entry fee is. So if you are playing a small field contest, I personally think anything over $20 in an entry, you can be considered sharp because it's a lot of bankroll that you have to enter to max that contest. So let's take a look at Very for the 250, the 121, and we're going to hit run contest sim. We're going to let that do its thing. Pretty fast. You like to see that. So first we have our overall exposures, but before I even go to overall exposures, the first thing I go to immediately is starting pitcher exposure. And what I want to take a look at are three things here. I want to take a look at the exposure. I want to see who are we getting the most of in this sim. And what the sims are really telling you is that in this size contest, in this sharp of a field, this is how often this player shows up in a winning lineup. So that's what that means. So we have Chris Sale. He's got an exposure in simulations of almost 63% of the time he's in winning lineups, followed by Cole Reagans, Castillo, Peralta, Pablo Lopez, and Landon Root. The next thing I look at is the edge column. I always start by highest edge. So Chris Sale, his efficient ownership is 27.77% in small field sharp contest, should be 63. So you have a pretty big edge there. That's how you get that number. So the biggest pitching edges tonight were Chris Sale, Luis Castillo, Pablo Lopez, Cole Reagans, and Landon Root. Very similarly, when we looked at our projections tab in the range of outcomes, you had Luis Castillo, Cole Reagans, and Chris Sale at the top. Pablo Lopez is a little interesting. So that's something to really note. And Landon Root did project well also. When you sort by lowest edge, the worst edge on the slate was from in this type of contest was Framber Valdez, Shane Baz, Freddie Peralta. All have gotten some noticeable ownership, followed by Zach Wheeler and Dylan Cease. So the contest sims, if you're playing small field, high dollar contest today, the sims made it very clear where you needed to go. You needed to have some combination of either Chris Sale, Castillo, Lopez, Reagans, and Root. Like, I think this is the pool you're picking from. Me personally, in my small field contest today, I personally did not get to Chris Sale. I wanted to get more of the Chicago Cubs bats, and I landed on Cole Reagans and Landon Root. That was my combination. So the next thing I want to look at in this column too, which is very important, is this salary column. So I know that may sound very, very, simple, but reason being, I want to know where the value in pitching tonight with the highest edge. I see 9,300, 8,500, 8,000, 8,100, 73. I should probably have, a high and a low, or, I'm not going into the 10K range whatsoever. I'm also probably not going to go below Landon Root, right? So punt pitching today with like Tyone, Hendricks, Charlie Morton, Merrill Kelly, like you're not doing that. And you're probably not clicking Jeffrey Springs either. So I like to do that to just know that this is the price range I need to be in for starting pitching. We go to team exposures now. So this is pretty interesting. You see the exposure amount of these teams in the Sims. So in small field high dollar contest, the Arizona Cardinals show up 21.4% of the time in winning lineups, followed by the Giants, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Brewers, Baltimore, Colorado, KC, Seattle, and the Cubs. So really what this is telling you is that you want to have a combination and you want to aim for maybe these teams, right? And do I think it's a blanket statement of if it's here, play it? Not necessarily, because what's showing in these contest sims, they're also ownership based. So there's going to be some spots that have a little bit of ownership. So you want to just be wary. So for me personally tonight, what I landed on in my small field contest is I landed on the Chicago Cubs with the San Francisco Mini. San Francisco today was just, fit really nicely in. So let's go take a look at now when we run this on large field. So if you're playing the lotto, if you're playing the $4.20 max, something like that, you're going to want to take this sharpness down. I personally put it at below average for anything that's $10 and under. I like to do, because you still have a lot of 150 maxers that can max like the $5 and whatnot, but I'll do below average because most casual players can get entries in there. So you hit the load reload sims, you run the contest sims. So let's see what differences there are between large field and small field. It's also simming a larger contest, so it's going to be a little slower naturally. Love Carson Kelly to also go yard here. That would be fantastic. Okay. Any day now at the Sims. So while that's loading, I'm going to pop over to our research sheets and I'm going to show you some of the things that I saw today that really helped me make decisions. So, first thing, what I do when I look at the research sheets is, the true average splits are, this is a great section to really view, but I like to look at things in the handedness and the current slate stats. You could also sort them by team. So if you click specific games, you want to isolate the teams on the slate, you can. So I like to look at true average. I like to look at expected home runs. I like to look at slugging. And then when you go by the handedness, you can see expected slugging to each handedness and expected home runs. So when I sort by expected home runs, Luis Castillo, on the slate, not good considering our sheets love him tonight. Our range of outcomes really liked him. So he's going to see some regression, but his true average is very low. His expected batting average is just as low. Walk rate below 10, 24% strikeout rate. He's going up against the Astros, who've been striking out a little bit more to start the season. Great, still fine play. Freddie Peralta, this walk rate, little wary. True average, very low. Expected batting average also low, but some home run upside. Him being in Coors tonight, I wanted to be a little under on him, even though I did like him as a pitcher and his stuff in this ballpark. He still posed enough risk that I went, okay, maybe I don't, slam him tonight. But then you look at Ben Lively, who got, he was in the earlier slate. Tyone, he got beat up against Texas. Zach Wheeler, he got beat up a little bit by Atlanta tonight. Pablo Lopez had a, really good start tonight. So that's where you can see the home run regression. You see a difference between this column and this column. It means they should be giving up more or less in that sample. So one of my favorite pitchers I liked tonight was Cole Reagans, and here's why. So Cole Reagans here, his expected home run regression is, you should have given up more in the sample. That's okay. True average is very low. His slugging is very low. Expected batting average is very low. He's K'ing 27% of the people he faces. The 10% walk rate you don't love to see, but that's okay. Because when you go and look at hitters now and you go look at teams, you could sort by K percentage. Who is at the top on the main slate? Minnesota. Highest K rate on the slate, lowest expected batting average, pretty low expected slugging. So I felt very confident with Cole Reagans tonight. He was just way too cheap. I think everybody knew that. Let's go take a look at the contest sims and see if they're done running. And yes, they are. So large field now, again, 20 max high, 20 max, the the lotto, whatever you guys want to play, the mini max. So here you'll see very similarly, Chris Sale actually shows up more here. So in large field, he's, just as valuable roughly with that edge. Cole Reagan's here, not as big of an edge in large field. So maybe in large field, you consider a Cole Reagan's pivot. Luis Castillo, pretty big edge. Yep, and then Freddie Peralta, negative edge. So you would have wanted to fade him in a large field tournament. Pablo Lopez could have been your pivot. So that right there, what that's telling me is that if I'm playing large field and I have a portfolio of lineups, that I probably want to get exposure to, like, if I'm playing Chris Sale and I'm not, we'll take a look at the offenses too. But I want to keep in mind ownership. If I'm playing Chris Sale and Reagan's, I want to keep in mind the bats I'm playing with them. If I'm taking Castillo, I'm probably feeling a little bit more easy about taking on some more chalk hitting. Peralta, same as Reagan's, you want to be a little wary. And then Pablo Lopez, yeah, you want to fire up any stack you really want and, any chalk stack, and same with Landon Roop. So something to consider. Team exposure. So Tampa Bay, who showed a much smaller percentage of exposure in our small field sims, showed up pretty high in the large field. Tampa Bay, probably because they're cheap. They're in a really good ballpark. Going up against Kyle Hendricks, that makes sense. The Giants afterwards, too. The Giants showed up in both, so the Giants should have been a target for a lot of people. Arizona, Milwaukee, and Texas. So for large field contests, you probably wanted to stick to a mix of these. And if you wanted to get secondaries of Baltimore, Colorado, KC, you definitely could have. You'll see here Philadelphia, not great. Angels, not great. Houston, not great. Minnesota, Atlanta, and these are the teams that you did not want to get to pre-slate. So now that we have an idea where the models want to go, last thing I'm going to do before I go over to DraftKings and we take a look at some of the ownership here is I'm going to go back to the scoring tab. So we have Milwaukee, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Colorado as some of the highest owned teams, and the Cubs. I'm going to go over to my small field first. So my small field lineup here, as you can see, I went Cole Reagan's, Landon Roop, and the three Giants. That game already started, so I'm curious to see what they came in at. So, wow, okay. I went with, Cole Reagan, 63% he ended up coming in at in small field. So definite small field, high dollar, definitely a lot higher owned than I think we thought. Landon Roop came in pretty strong, 5.1%. He's off to a nice start here. And then you have Heliot Ramos, Chapman, and Tyler Fitzgerald. So I tried to get the 8-1, and then Chapman just fit with the last part of my build. So I love seeing the fact that our contest sims loved them, and I got them sub 5%, sub 5%, sub 10. I'm happy. Whatever happens, happens. I think I played that correctly. Now, when I go to the four-seamer, which is the $4 20 entry max, here, my top lineup right here, you can see I went Reagan's in Sale. Even Reagan's outperformed ownership in large field. So that's something interesting. We thought Chris Sale was going to come in maybe a little bit higher owned. I just don't think we expected Reagan's to be quite that high. Me personally, I had a feeling he could be anywhere from like 30 to 40. So that's okay. But here you're going to see I played them with an Angels 5-man because our sheets did like them as leverage. Our sims did not. And honestly, I'm kind of paying the price for that. Bottom 9, it's a 4-3 game. Not really probably getting the result I want. But I do like the ownership that I have here on my hitters based upon what I have from my pitchers. So that's really important. Here, my second best one is Freddie Peralta, who's given up a run, but 5 innings, not bad. He finishes this inning. If they hold them, he's going to be in line for a win. So that's okay. Cole Reagan's just absolutely fucking smashed. There's nothing. To me, he was the best player in the slate. Here, I went with it looks like a Chicago stack, a 3-man Chicago with a 5-man Chicago, 3-man San Fran. So you can see that's kind of where I wanted to build today. Nico, this one too, Nico Horner. I still got Machado going in this build and a little San Diego Padres 3-man. I thought the Cubs were going to be decently owned. I didn't think they were going to be the highest owned team. I might want to consider maybe getting off San Diego here. So it's something to really consider from a late swap perspective. Oh, shit. Did not realize. There it is. So, okay. So, yeah, Reagan Sale. There it is. So pitching ownership shook out probably a little bit different than we thought it would probably be. I mean, based upon the contest sims. Actually, let me go to the range of outcomes here. We had Cole Reagan's at 28, Chris Sale 27, Freddie Peralta 26. Cole Reagan's blew that number out of the water. In regards to other offenses now, let me see. Tampa Bay came in as pretty mega chalk. I mean, looking at this here, this lineup in one of my contests, Brandon Lau 22%, Aranda 12, along with Milwaukee. So this person too, they're really going to need something out of Sal Frelick and Josh Smith to really make this lineup worthwhile. But if you're having a build like this, you probably feel like you're drawing dead based on the ownership. Oh shit, the screen's frozen. Hold on 1 second. C-Mills, is that good now? Can you see that moving or no? Okay. Well, so we still have some games to go tonight. Okay, it's good now? Okay, cool. Sorry. So we still have some games to go tonight. San Diego Padres being one spot that I think we're going to be a little bit higher, probably see a little bit more chalk too. But overall, the models were on point, tonight, especially from a scoring perspective. So I hate the simple view. I know people like it. I hate the simple view. But yeah, Chicago, 8+ runs. They're going into the bottom of the 8th right now. They got 6 runs on the board. Pretty good results so far. Tampa Bay, kind of faltered, but that's okay. We still have Seattle to go, Baltimore, Arizona. Atlanta seems like they put up something decent. So, they put up 7 runs. So, yeah, the models were pretty good. But yeah, this was the first review. Next week, we'll be back again to take a look at what direction the models pointed us to in, and also where ownership landed. My name is Jason over at Patriot DFS, and best of luck tonight. Hopefully we see some Patriot logos at the top of the contest, come midnight. EST, that is. Take care, guys.